and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Mignot, coming to you live from TMP, which is the Maison Projects, my event space here in Chelsea. We're super delighted to be in studio. This is part of my 29 Dates of Magic series, where I get to interview 29 phenomenal Black women throughout Black History Month. And today I am so excited to have Shana Stephenson, who's the SVP and Chief Brand Officer of the New York Liberty, one of my favorite sports teams of all time. We're going to have a great conversation about her career journey, some things she's learned along the way, and so much more. Take a listen. Hi, Shana.
Hi.
I'm so glad to have you on the show.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for the invite.
I am so thrilled to have you here. So, first question, always the same. Answers, always awesome. I'm sure yours will be no different. What's your all-time favorite job?
My all-time favorite job is the one that I'm currently in. It's perfect for me because it aligns my personal values with, I guess, my professional values. It's something that I don't compromise on, and I love to be able to work for a company that honors that. Also, just my purpose. It helps me fulfill my purpose, which I feel like is amplifying women's sports. And so to work for the New York Liberty, which I feel is really setting the foundation for what's possible in women's sports and leading the way is really phenomenal. And then I'm a New Yorker, so to be able to do it right here in New York, it's just perfect for me.
I love that. And it's like you don't have to leave anywhere. I'm already home.
Right, exactly.
You're there already. So obviously, you didn't just wake up and become Chief Brand Officer at Liberty. There was a journey. So
yeah, quite a journey.
So share with the group what the journey was.
Yeah, so I'll give you the short version.
Okay.
So I was a sports fan my whole life. I never played sports. I always tell people I'm only 5 feet. I've been 5 feet since I was in 5th grade. So I knew
chance.
I knew I had no chance. I knew being a professional athlete was just never going to be anything for me. But my brother was an athlete, and he excelled in football and went to college on a full football ride. He also ran track and wrestled. And so he was very athletic. And just being from New York, I feel like it's your birthright to grow into
sports,
being a sports fan. And I'm also a daddy's girl, right? And so that was one of the early ways that my father and I connected. Grew up rooting for the Knicks, and we would go to the playground on a Saturday, and he would teach me about the different players and their different positions, et cetera. And so that's where I really developed my love for sports. And so growing up, listened to it in the car, on the radio, read it in the newspapers, just consumed it as much as I wanted to. But it wasn't until I was already about maybe 8 years into my career within marketing that I decided that I was interested in pursuing sports as a career. And people over the years had asked me if that was something that I wanted to do, but I didn't even know that it was a possibility. If I'm being completely honest, I was on a marketing track, and I started to look into sports marketing jobs. And it was really hard to break into because it's such a competitive industry. And even though I knew I had really strong marketing experience, I didn't have any internship experience within sports. I didn't take any sports classes or have a degree in sports business. And so I was not getting opportunities, and I made the decision to apply to NYU sports business program. And I remember when I came to that conclusion that might be the best path for me to break into the industry, my dad questioned it because he didn't want me to have to take out loans or go into debt to pursue grad school. But I said, no, I think this is what I really need to do. And so with that, I moved forward with applying to grad school and studied for the GMAT. I took the GMAT, and I remember leaving the test center, and you get your scores right away. And I called NYU's admissions program, and I said, what's the minimum recommended GMAT score to enter the program? And they said whatever that number was, and I was slightly above that, and I was okay, done. So I took it once. I changed my resume to show that I would be attending NYU, and then suddenly that's when the opportunities started to come in. So ESPN, the NBA, USTA, and I ultimately accepted a role at ESPN, and that was my first foot in the door. And I worked at ESPN for 3 years, and there was just is where I decided that or discovered that I wanted to have a more impactful role in sports. I felt that I wasn't really being utilized in a way that I felt valued and seen, and I wanted to contribute more. And I left and decided to work for myself, which was a very unpopular decision at the time by several friends and several family members who quit ESPN. You know, that's a dream opportunity for so many. But I knew that it wasn't for me anymore. And I knew that there was something bigger for me. And so through that journey is when I discovered my true passion and love for women's sports, but really being an advocate for it and amplifying the voices within sports or within women's sports, giving it a platform because it was so and still is underrepresented. Now we're at a moment where there's obviously so much more attention and investment in it. By the time I really decided to focus on women's sports, it was probably 2013, 2012, 2013. And through that journey, I met Kia Clark, our CEO, and then she eventually hired me as a consultant to work for the Liberty. And then I came on board full time in 2019 in this role. So I think the period between ESPN and where I am today is what helped me be successful in this role. I was really highly focused on media, so writing stories. At the time, I was writing regularly for ESPN. I wrote feature stories for Bleacher Report. I was on TV as a talking head, talking about issues related to sports and whether it was about the NFL and domestic violence or athlete activism, sports activism overall, the gender disparity in sports. I created a lane for myself where people considered me to be a trusted voice to be able to speak on these things. And I also use that as a pathway to delve back into marketing. And that is what prepared me for this position that I hold now.
Okay, now hearing this entire story, this now all makes sense because it clear you were built for this because
Thank you.
you said 2019 and I'm like, oh Nelly, has the world changed
Yeah.
since then?
Yeah.
And has women's sports changed? Has the liberties changed? Like it feels like it was a boot camp. Like
Yeah.
you for real got the boot camp because listen, as someone who's been in corporate, has been an entrepreneur, has been back in corporate, is back being an entrepreneur, like it's a muscle that you build, but like it always prepares you to like go back into the trenches if you're out on your own and you create your own lane because you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like that's a big part about it.
You know, now I have a team, but when I first started working for the Liberty, I was a team of one, right? It was a one woman show, and I literally did everything marketing wise for the Liberty. And so when I'm talking to my team about we should do things this way or have we considered, approaching it from this perspective, and sometimes, we have these thoughtful conversations back and forth, but I'm always looking at them like, I used to do your job, right? There's nothing that you can tell me that I haven't done. I've been in your shoes before, so I know what goes into doing the work. So I do have appreciation for all the work that my team does. But to your point, it was a boot camp. It was a crash course in learning, the nuances of marketing women's sports as it compares to men. And I talked about my decision to leave ESPN being unpopular, but nothing was more unpopular than me deciding that I wanted to solely focus on women's sports because it seemed like a dead end. It didn't seem like anyone cared. It didn't seem lucrative. And now, I like to tell people, look at us now. Exactly.
Because it's fascinating to me because I think that again, and it's so helpful for folks listening that there is no defined path. Like you don't have to
Yeah.
like. I want to be a sports person, and then that's the only thing I want to do, and if I only do that, it's only work. And I'm like, yeah, no, you actually have to be out in the real world, seeing how different aspects of business, because sports is massive,
It's massive.
and you can't just say it's just one little particular thing. I mean, I had a conversation with someone recently, and he was like, I want to do market sports investments. And I was like,
What does that mean?
what?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I know it's PE and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, do you know anyone who works for anyone in the league? No. Do you know anyone who's for a team? No. I was like, how do you think you're going to find them? By just looking up that class that you just took?
Yeah.
Like, you have to be out in the world and give it, and just try different things. Otherwise, it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, and I get so many LinkedIn requests or emails, or just like if I speak at a panel, people come up to me afterwards and everyone says, I want to work in sports marketing. Okay, what does that actually mean? What do you want to do? That's such a broad industry that you have to be very clear in it, clear about what it is that you really want to do, what your skill is, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. You can't just say, I want to work in sports marketing, because working in sports marketing for a team is very different than it is at a league versus working at Nike, working versus, working at ESPN. So you really have to be thoughtful and intentional about exactly what path it is that you want to take.
And the intention has to be there. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I just want to work with Kai Hurt. That's awesome. Like, that's not a goal. That's not really a
Yeah.
goal. So, the journey has been quite unique and different. But from 2019 to now, y'all have shaken the world in a way that is beautiful and glorious. And I have to say that I absolutely love seeing, because, like, Liberty has become like the pioneers in so much of how to redefine why women's sports is lucrative, why women's sports is popular, and why like the only limits are the stars.
Right.
So how have you been able to do all that? Because very often, like, you're looked at as like you are the brand lady. So how'd y'all do that?
How did we do it? So, goodness, it's been a journey. It didn't happen overnight at all. And I think, there is this perception that it just kind of happened overnight. But Wakia and I were in Westchester, and we knew that we were moving to Brooklyn. Like, we got to work in terms of building a strategy that we knew would, or we hoped, I should say. I don't want to be, too cocky and knowing that this was going to work out the way that it did. But we hoped that we could use this opportunity to attract a younger, more diverse, cooler fan base audience, to the New York Liberty, into the WNBA. As an outsider looking in, and someone who had been working within, sports and women's sports, the missing ingredient for me was fully immersing the players and the teams into, and the league into culture in a truly authentic way. And so with us being in New York, I knew that was one of our biggest strengths, but also one of our biggest differentiators, because no other WNBA team has the access to culture in the way that we do here in New York. And with me being a New Yorker, that gave us another advantage, because I was able to tap into my own personal relationships, right? And just also understanding the lifestyle of New Yorkers and what a vibe would be, And so, and Kia was great too, because she has that historical knowledge of working at the Garden for as many years as she had been there, and then working for the WNBA prior to that for several years as well. So she brought historical context and understanding the traditions that we needed to continue to uphold and respect for the fans who have been following the Liberty since the late 90s into the early 2000s. But also, I brought that newer, fresher perspective of, okay, now we're in, the 2020s to 2021, and what does that mean as far as how we can bring fans in. And so when we, the first season we played in Brooklyn, we had about 2,500 fans in the building. We were still coming out of COVID and testing fans and socially distancing them within the building, and then season over season we just continue to grow, and coming out of each season was about continuing to build upon that momentum, understanding the wins that we had from that season and how that could carry over into the next season and how we could build upon it. And she and I have just been like a really formidable team, just in terms of being aligned in what our goals and what our objectives are and what measures we need to take to get there.
It's been incredible to watch. As a longtime fan since '97, even in those Westchester days.
Thank you.
Like,
did you come out to Westchester?
didn't come out to Westchester,
Okay.
but like found some bits of it on TV
Yeah.
somewhere through some machinations. But always was a fan because I played basketball when I was a kid. So and also I have older brothers, so same idea.
Okay.
Knew the deal.
Yeah.
And to see what's happened now has just been phenomenal. And a couple of things that I thought was really unique. And again, you guys were the game changers as well. Obviously, y'all have a mascot.
Do we have a mascot?
I like, but I love the fact that the very first time a mascot is a character in of themselves,
Right.
is decidedly New York and clearly a black woman. Doesn't matter who's inside the costume. Doesn't matter. I don't care who that is. But you can absolutely tell from the style, the flavor, the look, the behavior, that's a black woman. And a black woman who's from Brooklyn. And like, so how does that happen? Like, who goes, you know what, we should go ahead and do that. And then like actually goes and makes that happen.
So we knew we had to get this right because you've been a fan since day one. So Maddie is
precious.
Yes,
But
yeah. Maddie was our original mascot, and we loved Maddie. Maddie was great. Maddie had a huge fan base as well. Very beloved by Liberty fans. But we knew that in our transition into a new building, a fresh era, building a new identity, we had to sunset Maddie in a way that was very respectful, that honored her, that allowed us to open the door for her to return when we wanted her to. So, for those who don't know, Maddie is a golden retriever. And like I said, very beloved, but it was not like we took Maddie out and, killed her or anything. So she's still,
she's still very much
alive.
alive.
She's still very much alive. She actually was at our parade in 2024, and
yeah,
fans,
I was there. Yeah.
and fans were so excited to see her. So with that, though, we knew we had an opportunity to introduce a new mascot, but if we did it, we had to get it right. And sort of the gift and the curse of that was that in 2021, as I mentioned, we were still dealing with a lot of the aftermath of COVID, and we rolled Ellie out, or we unveiled Ellie in that season, but she couldn't actually go to work the way that we see her today because she couldn't be on court. So we had to build a stage off in like at the baseline where all of our entertainment teams performed. And it didn't allow her to really connect with the fans, but what it did was allow her to be comfortable in her body and understand what she wanted Ellie to be, right? And so the performer in the costume is a true entertainer, a true performer. So it's very collaborative across the board in terms of marketing and our entertainment teams and how we want Ellie to kind of continue to evolve. And so a lot of what you characterize as Black woman coded is a combination of myself, our senior entertainment director, Cassia Long, who is phenomenal, and she leads all of our entertainment across Brooklyn Sports and Entertainment. Kia's involvement in that, Shanae Rivers, who works under Cassia, and then the person in the costume as well. And so very much a team effort. But I believe what works so well is we're all drawing off of our identities in terms of, the 4 Black women that I named. And then that's where you start to see it really come to life because it just feels so authentic and so real. And we couldn't fake that. We couldn't pretend to have someone who represented New York that doesn't truly understand New York or Brooklyn. in the way that it shows up. And so sometimes it's spontaneous, like at the games.
I have seen that where I'm like,
So sometimes Kia and I are in the suite and we'll look at each other like, oh, okay. We're doing this. Like one game, Ellie brought out a tambourine. I think it was one of our playoff games. It might have been the finals game 5 that we won that ultimately went to overtime and we won the championship. And we were like, okay, we're going to church right now, but we need this moment. We need all the gods on our side. So, but it's just like those moments where I'm not involved, Kia's not involved, but our entertainment team and the performer, we just trust them in those moments because that's what it's all about, right? It's all about entertainment and keeping the fans hyper engaged throughout the game, especially during those most stressful moments.
This is 29 Days of Magic. And again, having black women at the center and being the ones who are calling those shots are key. Because it's like, oh, other folks have tried, other teams have tried, and we see what the results are. And
I didn't say that.
in the past and future. But what's interesting is, and what's impactful is that, when folks are allowed to fully be themselves and have their own autonomy, which obviously is not just you, but the incredible women who are behind this, you see what magical things are possible. And all the work that you've been able to do and sort of kind of reframing and resetting, what do you kind of think was sort of your like moment of reset in and around all this?
My moment of reset was when I made the decision to leave ESPN. It was definitely a bold choice and I had a plan, but as an entrepreneur, the plan doesn't always come together the way that you script it. It takes longer. You think you have some money that you can live off of. That money starts to just kind of like, exactly. So that was the biggest reset for me when I decided I was leaving ESPN and also just betting on myself, right? Because at that point, it was no going back. And even though there were moments that were presented to me to consider taking other opportunities, full-time opportunities here and there, my instinct said, nah, this isn't it. Like, I'm going to continue to pursue my purpose and my passion. And, when this opportunity came up with Kia, and Kia tells a hilarious story about the first time that we met. She was interviewing me for a role on her team. And I was very much working for myself. And I had multiple clients and I was doing well, but I wasn't interested in a full-time job. But she was looking and interested in hiring someone for a full-time role. And I went into that meeting with her and I was like, look, I'll come work with you, but I'm not like coming to do this full time. And the way she tells it is so funny, but she's like, you had no interest in what I was talking about in that moment. And I was like, it wasn't that. It just, I didn't want it in that package, And so I'm happy that she didn't take that as just a no, because who knows, maybe I wouldn't be here today, but I'm glad that we stayed in touch and eventually we found our way to the relationship that we have today, where I was at a point then to say like, yes, I'll come in, I'll do this full time. But that was the biggest moment of reset for me, is leaving ESPN and then just like continuing to bet on myself and trust my instincts and my intuition and knowing that this was where I was exactly where I was supposed to be.
Which is the hardest thing to do, because we all know what happens when the checks are no longer 15th and 30th.
Yeah.
You're like, oh,
you're chasing checks and people aren't paying you on time. And when I first left ESPN, I remember I would take people out to business dinners, and then it became lunches, and then it became a breakfast,
coffee,
and then it became coffee, because I was like, okay, I am running out of money. I don't have it anymore. We don't need to do these fancy dinners. So, it forces you to just put things into perspective. But yeah, I'm really proud of myself that I was able to continue to chart my own path and not give up on myself.
Well, that's the thing. It's everyone needs to remember that, like, the best bet is bet on yourself.
Yeah.
and not forgetting that like you can do some magical shit. Like, you really can.
Yeah.
Like we, especially as Black women, it's like we stop acting like this isn't. We can do this.
Yeah.
Like there is no group more educated, that has also, we know that twice as hard is not a lie.
Exactly.
It ain't a
Yeah.
lie.
The only lie is that it's more than twice
It's-
as hard.
Ma'am.
Yeah.
it's like when you see us in these roles, know that like it should be 7 times higher. But that's the world we're in. But like we are the ones who understand us more than any. And looking back on what you've been able to accomplish, which is incredible, what do you think you'd probably tell your 18-year-old self?
Don't panic. I think, growing up, and I still have this quality. Like, I've talked to my therapist about being a perfectionist, or at least being perceived as having it all together, which you just have to let go of. But, I would, one thing that I would tell my younger self, or I tell young people today, is that the dots always connect, right? So while when I was in college, I did not go to school for this. This is not what I saw for myself at all. But here I am today, and every step along the way has led me here, right? And so while it hasn't been a straight line at all, there's been a lot of detours along the way, a lot of stop signs, a lot of dead ends. Still, the dots have connected, and you just have to trust that when you really trust your instincts and do what is purposeful, then you can't lose with that.
It's so important. It's like that gut is right.
Yeah.
The gut is right.
Yeah.
Even if this makes no sense at all.
Yeah. And not everyone is going to be able to see that for you. Like, as supportive as my family is and supportive as my closest friends are, no one understood the journey that I was on. And so it got lonely at times. And thankfully, I do have a subset of friends who were also on their own entrepreneurial journeys at the time. And so we were able to just build our own community together. But for others, like, there were a lot of vacations I couldn't afford to take that everyone else went on. A lot of missed opportunities because I was making a sacrifice at the time. And while other people may have not understood it, I knew that it was what I needed to do for me, right? And so that's all that mattered. And so you can't expect everyone to like hold you down during that. Like, you have to just know, like, I'm doing this 100%, whether you're with me or not.
It's so true. And I having had this boomerang journey of like being in corporate, then going to be an entrepreneur for quite some time, and then going back into corporate, and then back in the entrepreneur. My thing has always been like the concentric circles of friends from each of those buckets. Like, I have my entrepreneur friends who we all know the hell we are currently going through, and that is what it is.
Yeah.
And my corporate friends who I love dearly, but also the risk is not, they couldn't even see risk if they're, it's smack them in the face, because like, no, 15th and 30th, gotta need my paycheck. And again, and you respect the heck out of them, but they also come with a different perspective that is, again, it has some degree of temperament in it, because like they can't go that far.
Yeah.
And it's good to have both, I find.
I agree.
Like, because like you can't always be flying off the side of the universe, but also you do sometimes need a touch of grounding, a touch of smidgen. But when you do that, like, the balance is good. And I think, and also you tapped into something really important, just having friends around you who you can talk to. Like, that is kind of important.
It's very important. Yeah.
Like, you won't be able, like, this is not a solitary journey. None of it is. Whether you're senior in corporate or you're senior on your own, like, you have to have the networks around you, because that's how also you're going to get that next phone call. You're going to get that next heads up about something, or the invite to the dinner. And I did the same thing when I started out with dinners, and then but I quickly flipped to wine and French fries.
Oh, that is my like girl dinner. That is, give me a glass of wine and some French fries, and I am so good.
Listen,
The most balanced meal.
it is the healthiest meal. Let me tell you about how good that meal is. Like we used to start. My very first office, my first company was the Crosby Street Hotel.
Oh.
So that was our first office, and we made friends with the general manager, and so we would sit in the front and have French fries and gavi because we knew the French fries were $7 and the gavi was $6. So basically, for $17 with tax, I could have dinner and just have meetings there
Yeah.
after the fact, and they would just refill the glass. But like it was just a French fries, so nothing else could be afforded. Like, and it became a snack. Like,
No, I get it. I get it.
and it was also cool because again you picked a good spot that folks kind of liked, but yeah, that was it. Well, come for wine and French fries. No, we're not having dinner. Like we're just stopping off here. Like that's all. We're just stopping off. Um, as we're in this kind of really unique time of the world that we're all in, and like have learned so much, and come from a place of gratitude. What do you think something you're really grateful for right now?
Family. Yeah, my parents. My parents have been married over 50 years. They're in their late 70s, but have the spirit of 45-year-olds, like 40 years old, 40-year-olds. And so I am grateful for them every single day because I'm also at that period in my life where a lot of my friends are unfortunately saying goodbye to their parents. And so I do not take that for granted whatsoever. My brother and I are extremely close, and he travels a lot for business. And so and he lives in Brooklyn, so when he's home, I, make it a priority to see him, and I try to spend as much time as I can with my nephews. So family is number one for me, and I'm so incredibly grateful for them.
Oh, I love that. Yep. Are you big sister or little sister?
Little sister.
Same.
Yeah.
Because you know what it is when you're a little sister. It's like,
And they'll tell you
oh,
I'm very
ma'am.
much like little sister, baby of the family. Like I get all of those.
No matter how old you are.
Yeah, not at all. Still a
It's
daddy's girl.
still daddy's girl.
Yeah.
Like I just had my birthday last week, and so I was at my
Happy
parents.
birthday.
Oh, thank you. And I was at my parents down in Florida because I was tired. I was like, I just need somewhere to go that's warm and free. Hence, parents in Florida.
Yeah.
My brothers all happened to be there as well, so it was nice to sort of all of us all be
Nice.
together because like that never happens. We're all in the
Yeah.
same place. And I turned back into a toddler all over again. I'm like
Yeah, you all fall back into the same roles.
roles.
It's
Oh
so
my
true.
gosh.
Yeah.
Because I was like asking my dad something, and then my brothers were like giving me all kind of nonsense, and I was like, "How is it? We are all adults.
Yeah.
Like, what is this?"
Can relate to that. Yeah.
And also, like, my parents still have no idea what I do. They're just like, "What?"
My parents know now because they do come to Liberty games, and so they understand now. But for a while, it was like, I don't know. And now they're like, I understand how all of the things that you worked on prior to that has led up to this. But when I was in it,
they're like, "What?"
yeah,
Girl, what have you done?
exactly.
Yeah. But it all brings us out to a good space and somewhere that we can be super proud of and take us, just keep building, doing good stuff along the way. So last question for you. Do you have a give and or an ask of the audience?
Since this is about Black women and powerful Black women, as someone in my mid 40s who's single and no children, I love Tracy Ellis Ross so much. And so I would say, so my give would be to watch her series, Solo Traveler. It is so liberating. And the way that she just is intentional about living her best life, dressing in her flyest clothes for herself, not for anyone else's validation or consumption. Like it just gives you permission to just be who you are, right? And I just love that, and just feeling like so empowered and powerful in just like who you are and your identity. So that would be one give. And then also Tracy Ellis Ross related. She had a phenomenal interview with Emma Grede on I can't remember the name of her podcast, Aspire, maybe.
I think it's called Aspire now.
And their conversation, again, it was I just felt so seen in it. So, so that would be my give.
Awesome. As a fellow mid-40s single black woman, I could talk to you about that for hours. It's a whole other show. It's like, lots of shopping. Let's just put it that way. Shana, it's been so delightful to have you on
Thanks
this podcast.
for having me.
I mean, like, this is the reason I love doing 29 days, and I'm actually super happy to do them in person because schedules are always kind of a little challenge, so I'm really glad we were able to make this happen. But, like, your journey, what you've able to accomplish, what you are currently accomplishing is so, so impactful and will show folks how important it is to come in with your full self, and beautiful, beautiful things will happen as a result of that. So thank you so much for being part of 29 Days of Magic.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Awesome. And that is our show.